Thank you for joining me this morning with my coffee and my sleepy voice and my sleepy eyes, my sleepy face. I wanted to come out and harvest some of my herbs and flowers to make my daily tea. Now I call it a tea, but I think technically it's like a broth because I believe tea is using dried herbs and this is using fresh. This is something I look forward to all winter long, all autumn. I do dry every single one of these plants and I can make the actual tea in the winter and the fall and the spring, though I have a lot of these grow in the spring now that they're a few years old. They come up really early. But mostly this is a summer drink. If I don't have this, we'll just call it a tea. If I don't have my tea, I can tell the next day that I'm less hydrated, that I'm a little bit more edgy, I'm not as calm, and that's because a lot of these herbs that are inside of this tea are for nervous system repair, to calm us down. So I did not make this yesterday and I can feel it. I actually went to bed thinking about it. So what's in here is we've got lemon balm, which was the first thing that went in. And this, I mean, people will say all you have to do is smell this and you will calm down. So this is something that you can give to a child to kind of rub their fingers on and smell if they're having a hard moment. The next one is pineapple sage. When I discovered adding pineapple sage to this tea, it changed the whole thing. The entire thing changed. So pineapple sage, I grow it not just for that, but also I try to grow one of the plants so that it will flower, let it flower, because the flowers are this most beautiful red flower. It's gorgeous. So I try to do one for picking and one to let grow and flower. Then we've got thyme. I don't put too much thyme in, just a little bit. The next one is sage. Sage is so good for your throat, to soothe your throat. I have a lot of throat stuff because I go like this all the time from allergies. It's actually in my lungs, coming up from my lungs, but this is really helpful. And then, speaking of lungs, I find that the peppermint is really good for not only my lungs, but also my stomach. So any digestive stomach stuff, the sage helps a lot with that too. And then the most special magical one. So my plant is very young, so I have very few. My seeds, the cat got into my seeds and messed them up, so I only have actually one holy basil plant. And this one is like between the lemon balm and the holy basil and the pineapple sage, you could just leave it at that. Sometimes I don't add everything. It is just the most stunning, delicious herb. When it flowers, you use the flowers. I use the flowers on all these. Often I add oregano flower to this, or catnip, or strawberry leaves, raspberry leaves, blueberry leaves, and often I pop in just one calendula. Well, my camera died outside, so we're back inside. I've given these a rinse, but only because my harvest basket was dirty. Otherwise, normally I just lay them out if they're clean. Usually I go out and just grab a handful for the tea that day. Today I decided to harvest a little extra. So this is many, many days worth of tea, and I can just let it sit and get wilty. And actually when it's a little bit wilty, the tea is really good. So I'll just kind of go through and like pluck out a couple of thyme, some of the sage, the mint. But it's a good idea when you come inside, before you put the herbs straight into the jar, to let them sit for a minute, because any bugs that are on them are going to crawl off. I just actually watched a bug crawl off before I decided to rinse these. And then you can kind of go through and pick through anything that might still be a little dirty, but a little dirt never hurt anybody. I picked so much pineapple sage, so I'll probably end up drying some of that, putting it over on my drying rack, which is over here. This is the drying rack that I keep right next to just my kitchen area. And there's lemon verbena and tulsi and calendula and mint and catnip for the cat. And then I just created my own third layer by laying a towel down underneath. You're just gonna pop in whatever it is you want to use for the tea in that moment. Trying to get a little bit of each thing. When I pick it like this, it's a little more confusing because I have to sort through and make sure I have lemon balm and peppermint and tulsi and sage. And so it doesn't have to be much, just something like this. And then we'll go ahead and add the water. I have a tiny teapot, so I fill this up twice and it'll get to about here. And then I just put a plate or cover it and let it sit, usually for a couple of hours. And then I strain it into another jar that looks just like this. So I'll put this over the other jar and I'll pour this one into it. And so I have two, so I go back and forth. This is a jar that was used for raw honey. And every time I finish one of those bulk raw honeys, I have another amazing jar. They do have lids as well that I can use, but I tend to just cover it with a plate or a cloth. And that's it. It is the most delicious, nutritious, calming, gorgeous drink. Thank you for the early morning hangout with me and my sleepy face. I'm feeling much more awake now. 1 cup of coffee in, and even though it's decaf, it's still my ritual to wake up. And it is a stunningly gorgeous day. All right, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Bye. Go make some tea.